What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about a topic that's very interesting to me, and I'm going to try to answer the question, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that, of why kettlebell sport is so wildly unpopular. So basically kettlebell sport it just seems like it's never really growing, because actually like 10-15 years back it already seemed like it was going somewhere, right? Because obviously it's a Russian sport, it came up in Russia, and even in Russia it's a pretty niche sport, so it's not like there's kettlebell sport on every street corner. But like 10, 15, almost 20 years ago, you already had like the Russian athletes like either migrating, like Denis Vasilyev, who went to the USA. You had like Rudnev traveling the world, giving seminars, and you had like certain people, certain pioneers starting to get coached by Russian athletes, and that way like there's communities actually formed, and it seemed like the sport was on a good trajectory. And we have our like own organizations, like every like country there, and it's like, I know people say there's too many of them, but like I'm not sure that's actually true, because like it's a small sport as is, right? Like why would we want to like artificially like limit it even more? But I digress. We have like coaches, we have people who train the sport, and it's a really cool sport because it's just like challenging. It's something that's worth doing. It's going to make you strong, it's going to make you conditioned, it's going to make you mentally strong. I mean, people who train the sport are going to agree with me on that. But why can't we make it more popular? And that question comes up every so often, like on social media. I see those kinds of posts. And in my opinion, the reasons given are usually wrong, because there are like 3 different reasons a sport may be popular, in my opinion. The number one is it's just an established sport, and it's an Olympic sport. Like most of those are Olympic sports where there is just like a structure, like usually like all the countries within the government, there are like athletic programs, there's a national team, there's going to be some funding there, and by virtue of it being Olympic, there's a certain prestige to it, and people are going to want to compete in it. Right? For example, like wrestling, okay? There's like not much money in wrestling, and also not a whole lot of people like watch it, but it's just like Olympic, there's prestige to it, and it's an established sport. Then next up you have spectator sports, and that's really like, you have your soccer, like football in the US, you have MMA, the UFC, and that's really sports that are interesting to watch. People like, even people who don't participate in the sport, you don't need to understand all the rules perfectly, and you can just like watch, and it's going to, people are willing to pay to watch it, and pay either like with their money financially, like they are willing to, for example, buy a pay-per-view, or with their time, right? In soccer, like you can watch the translations for free, but because so many people watch it, sponsors are willing to like invest in the teams, brands are willing to invest, that allows the teams to pay the players accordingly, and that's going to attract talent, and it means like the sport is going to be big because there's a lot of money in the sport. And the third kind of sports are those who are only watched and really supported by the people who play the sport, right? And like a great example is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like nobody who doesn't train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu watches that shit. Like nobody like who doesn't train the sport himself buys a pay-per-view for, I don't know, ADCC, for flow grappling. Absolutely nobody. So it's really like a sport that's driven by the amateurs. And now often I see the argument that kettlebell sport, yeah, it needs like funding from the government. The government is like, why would the government, like in Russia, they actually have government funding because it's their national sport, and they have like this like law that's going to allow them to fund either Olympic sports or national sports. And kettlebell sport counts as a national sport. So that's why they have actual government programs to develop the sport. But why would a Western government give a shit about kettlebell sport? Like, they wouldn't. It would have to become Olympic. It's unlikely to become Olympic because of the politics, right? We understand that. And people say, I should get paid to compete at the World Championship. I pay out of my own pocket. Yes, because it's your hobby. Because if it was an actual like real sport with real talent, you wouldn't compete at the World Championship. Like, because you're not good enough. It's actually a privilege for you to pay to compete at the World Championship, to have the experience to compete at the World Championship and even maybe become world champion in anything. Because if we actually attracted a lot of talent, like, I certainly wouldn't be able to compete at the World Championship. So yeah, that's like neither here nor there. But yeah, and the other reason like why people say kettlebell sport isn't so like popular is because people don't watch it because it's boring to watch, and now we need to make 10 minutes is too boring to watch. We need to make it 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and then people are going to watch it. And that's just putting the sport into a category where it doesn't belong, because it doesn't belong in the spectator sports category because it's not inherently interesting. Nobody's going to pay to watch that shit, right? Because it's not soccer. And it also doesn't belong into the Olympic sport category because we just don't have the established structures. And maybe we can establish them over time, but like, that's not going to happen overnight. It's an actual amateur sport like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where the fans who are willing to invest money into the sport are also the participants. So the only way to really grow the sport is increase the number of athletes. And a sport can go pretty far that way because, for example, running, right? Running is also an amateur sport. Like, who watches running? Like, maybe you're going to watch, like, if there's like a marathon and there's a chance of somebody running under 2 hours, okay. But most likely the people who are going to watch that are also people who run themselves. So it's like really the example of the most successful amateur sport because it's just so accessible, right? And the question now becomes, how are we going to attract more people to watch it? And then, not to watch it, but to actually train it, right? So we can actually grow the sport. And that's now really the thing it gets down to is how can we get more people to train it, right? And that's when the next thing comes up is like people, so it's too hard for people. And I'm not sure people are so soft, actually. Like, I'm not sure about that, because people are willing to do hard things. Like the aforementioned running, like running a marathon isn't easy, training for a marathon isn't easy, but people are willing to do it. So CrossFit, high rocks, like even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, all those are sports that are like inherently not easy, but people are willing to do it. So I'm not sure, like the solution that was given, for example, pentathlon, right, was an attempt of making kettlebell sport easier so more people would participate in it. And did that really work out? Like, I think the number of people who do pentathlon is actually lower than the number of people who actually like do the classic lifts, right? So I think the only solution, like to grow the number of participants, is to make kettlebell sport cool. That's really the thing we have to look at. And that's what we see, for example, with running. You have your like top athletes, and those are needed because those are the guys that like really push the limits of the sport. But then you also need your like a rung lower, you need your ambassadors of the sport, you might call them. And that would be in modern times, that would be your influencers. And I kind of like put myself into that category, but we need much more of them. And you see that in running, like it's like you have your Kipchoges or whoever, like your elite runners, but those aren't the people doing social medias. But you have thousands and thousands of running influencers, and they may only run a they may only run a 4-hour marathon, right? But they are the ones doing content and creating content and actually like propagating the sport. And then, of course, that's going to lead to popularization of the sport. And I think the problem is we don't ever get the critical mass to actually like really grow the sport. That's really, I think, the problem. For example, I had like in 2023, Instagram really liked my content, and I got tons and tons of views. So I had like one kettlebell sport reel. It was from a competition, and it got almost 1 million views on Instagram, which it might have been the most successful, like most viral kettlebell sport reel ever, probably. And of course, like surely I brought a lot of people into the sport, or like put the sport in front of a lot of people. But like I'm just like one guy, and I had like obviously one like stream of viral success, quote unquote. But you need just more of that to actually get more, to reach critical mass, so it can actually grow. Because like I just see the same things happening already 10-15 years. Like the Russians were traveling, giving seminars, some of them migrated, like Denis Vasilyev moved to the US, like built his community there. You had like Rudnyev traveling the world, giving seminars, and people like form communities, etc. And we have those communities, but we just need more of everything. So how do we get that? I don't know. I think we need to make kettlebell sport cooler. Like I think saying, oh, like this is too hard, can we make this like easier? I think that's just like not the right way to go about it. We need to actually, like, because that's not going to inspire anyone. Like here, if you do this really easy thing, like we can make it really easy for you, so even you can do it. It doesn't sound too inspiring, right? So I think people are willing to do hard things if it's actually cool, and if you can present a convincing case why it's actually cool and beneficial. And to me, the thing that was actually cool about kettlebell sport is just that it's going to turn you into a beast, right? Because that's like it's not the act of like lifting those kettlebells, but you try it and you see it's actually really hard, and you say, oh fuck, like how are there people like doing that pace for 10 minutes? And then you look at the strength and endurance that's required to do that, and you just think, that's actually like superhuman. Like that's what it seems like in the beginning. And that's actually what inspired me. And I think that's a lot of you are going to relate to that. So how are we going to actually like make the propaganda and like transport that message? I think that's really the question we have to answer. And not how can we make it easier, or how can we make it more watchable? Because even if it's 1 minute sets, nobody's going to watch it. Look at powerlifting. How long does it take to pull a deadlift? It takes 10 seconds. Who watches powerlifting meets? Who buys powerlifting pay-per-views? Nobody. They don't exist. Powerlifting is in exactly the same situation. You have the amateurs and the participants supporting and growing the sport. And that's what we need to do with kettlebell sport. So let me know in the comments what you think about it and how we can do that.